Good day, everyone. For this particular video, we'll be discussing about water and water pollution. So one of the world's critical problem is water pollution, and not only here in the Philippines, but in fact, it is also a global issue. The top water is actually an integral part of life in this planet, which is an odorless and tasteless substance that cover more than three-fourths of the Earth's surface. 97% of which is actually salt water found in oceans and seas, 3% of which is fresh water. And this fresh water is divided into two categories. 2% of it are ice caps and glaciers, meaning it is frozen. 1% is usable for humans and also for land animals, found in lakes, rivers, streams, ponds, and in the ground. So when we talk about water pollution, this is actually the contamination of water sources by substances which make the water unusable for drinking, cooking, cleaning, swimming, and other activities. Pollutants include chemicals, trash, bacteria, and parasites. All forms of pollution eventually make their way to the water. So talk about water pollution is not only chemical contamination, but also biological contamination. For example, you have there an exotic species which could actually compete with the resources for native fishes or endemic species in that particular area. So that will become a pollution to that particular ecosystem. That's the term water pollution. As you can see here in this particular pictures, there are marine litters everywhere, scattered in the canal or also in a body of water, and also even to the ocean. So that's how problematic it is when we talk about water. And as a maritime student, you need to know that you are also causing pollution to the environment, especially when you have operations that are not following the guidelines in terms of MARPOL. So there are different sources of water pollution, and there are two. First one is point source contributors of pollution that can be identified like oil refineries. So you can actually directly identify the source. That's a point source. When talk about non-point source, diffuse sources like agricultural activities. It's actually coming from different sources, so you call it as a non-point source. So in this particular diagram, we have the non-point sources coming from the cities, farms, development areas, and roads towards a body of water. And talk about point sources, you can actually directly identify that factories or this particular factory or plant is actually contaminating our body of water. And the same goes with the vessel. So I mentioned, as a maritime student, you need to know about water pollution because it is part of your operation. So this is the difference between your non-point sources and your point sources. Specific sources are harmful chemicals, sodium chloride, sodium sulfate, potassium sulfate, mercury, and pesticides from industrial waste. So this could actually intoxicate our body of water and could probably cause harm to the inhabitants, like your marine species or your fish living in a particular area or any other living things living in a particular area because of these harmful chemicals. Number two would be oil washing, kitchen wastes, and other waste from homes. So even our household chores, household chores could actually uh, add to the contamination in our water, thus the term water pollution. Agricultural practices, of course, eutrophication of lakes and rivers. Nitrates and phosphates commonly used as fertilizers can enhance algal bloom and later on change the state of the particular water. So about agricultural waste because of fertilizers, we can cause here the term eutrophication. Take note, eutrophication. This actually means a death of a body of water because of a phenomenon known as algal bloom, wherein that particular body of water will be heavily contaminated with algae or water plants in the surface. And below it, there will be not enough sunlight and at the same time not enough oxygen for the other living things under the water to survive. Thus, it's actually adding to the risk or to the pollution in the water. That's agricultural practices. Sugar mills, the fourth one, produce hot water discharge that can cause thermal pollution in rivers and in seas. The water pollutants, the first one will be domestic waste produced by the households. 70% of the water pollutants includes food leftover, animal and human manure, fruit peelings. So we can actually see this at home, which we discharge the body of water, especially when we are doing the dishes. Okay, so those are domestic waste. And we can also contribute to oil scattered to the water table because we just throw away our grease and also our oil in canals, which could also potentially um, leak into the groundwater supply. That's domestic waste. Biological pollutants are living organisms with negative effects in the environment. Includes coliform bacteria, janitor fish, and water lilies. As I mentioned earlier, when we talk about janitor fish, this particular species is actually not native here in the Philippines. It's actually an exotic species, or we call it invasive or alien, because there are no other species that could feed on it. So there's no local or natural predator for janitor fish, so it tends to populate more and more. It's really good for them, especially if the environment is dirty. Thus, they could compete for resources such as food and oxygen in the water. So it will become a biological pollutant. And the same goes with your water lilies. When these water lilies multiply, it will be really hard for other organisms under the water to have enough oxygen at the same time, have enough sunlight. Plastics and styrofoam made from petroleum and CFC, non-biodegradable and had caused clogging of waterways and canals. So you know it already, but when we throw plastics in a body of water, it could tend to clog the particular waterway, that particular drainage, and long-term effect would be flooding. So that will be one of the drastic effect of plastics and styrofoam. Number four, detergents cause frothing and foaming of the streams and rivers and contains alkyl benzene sulfonate that is toxic to fishes and other aquatic organisms. It is not also advisable to throw or to dispose your detergents or to do the laundry in a body of water because it could actually intoxicate our fishes and other aquatic organisms. And to also add, turbo detergents is also somewhat connected with your agricultural waste earlier that we mentioned, which could cause algal bloom and long-term effect would be your death of a body of water known as eutrophication. So number five, mine tailings, residue of mining or extraction. Large release of acid to rivers and lakes add sediments that interfere with sunlight and make body of water shallower. So that will be our mine tailings coming from our mining industries, polluting our water streams at the same time, making the particular body of water shallower and shallower. Since you add into the deposits or residue to that particular body of water, thus the water will become shallow. Sugar mills, of course, here in Negros, here in Bacolod, we are known as the sugar bowl of the Philippines. So our main industry is focused on sugar. So wastewater that is rich in suspended and dissolved solids, hot water, alkaline influence from caustic cleaning and evaporators and mud process could also be discharged in a body of water. And if this will be discharged, first things first, it will affect the balance in ecosystem and the chemicals will actually pollute the environment. So we need also to take care and be vigilant of our different sugar essentials here in Bacolod or here in the Negros Island, I mean, so that we can control water pollution from industries. Connected with sugar mills will be our alcohol distillery because one of the reactant used to produce your alcohol would be glucose or sugar-based substances. Through fermentation process, we can actually produce your alcohol. So this produces methyl alcohol from molasses, which is also a waste product of your sugar mills that produce wastewater with slopes having a biological oxygen demand of 4,000 milligrams per liter to 50,000 milligrams per liter. Can turn water into black and produce stinking color. As you can see here, this particular line. The last, I think, for this would be your agricultural pollutant. Fertilizers. Yun. Fertilizers contain nitrogen and phosphorus that can leach to the groundwater. Nitrates cause infant methemoglobinia. So this one, infant has methemoglobinia. Phosphate causes extensive algal blooms and contributes to eutrophication, which I defined earlier as the death of a body of water, since it will be fully covered with algae, the surface part, and the fish under it and the plants under it will not have enough sunlight and enough oxygen for them to survive, then it will eventually die biologically. So pesticides may include the development of resistant pest species. And like when I'm talking about this pesticides and about genetic modification, enhancement of products, it will be discussed more on your NJEC 7 subject, Science, Technology, and Society. Okay, so not the last. So there are two more items that could contribute to our pollution. The ninth one would be oil. These interfere with digestion and causes respiratory failure to organisms, limits sunlight penetration, and results to the death of fish and plankton. So if this particular body of water will be covered with oil, then again, since oil does not permit oxygen to pass through it, or if there will be a hard time for oxygen to penetrate this particular liquid, then the particular body of water or part of the ocean or sea or a body of water cannot let oxygen pass through, and all organisms under it will eventually die if not directly addressed, or if the issue was not directly addressed. So that's it. And aside from oxygen, sunlight cannot also penetrate. So any plants requiring sunlight for photosynthesis underwater will also be damaged, and at the same time it will cause imbalance in a particular ecosystem. The tenth one will be thermal pollution. The discharge of hot water dies likewise affecting the oxygen content of the water, leading to fish suffocation. This actually kills fishes because they cannot regulate temperature change. So as you can remember, our topic about poikilotherms or cold-blooded animals. We talk about fish. Those are cold-blooded animals. So they cannot really regulate temperature changes. Any abrupt changes or drastic changes in temperature can be fatal for our fishes. So thermal pollution is usually happens when you directly dispose a very hot water, processed water directly to the ocean or to the river. This could happen actually um, in a ship vessel when you are not following the standard operation on how to dispose your wastewater. So that will be thermal pollution. So speaking of thermal pollution, as you can see in this particular image, this will be your factories that could release chemicals and at the same time thermal pollution to the body of water. There will be lesser and lesser fish in this particular area. And the fish tends to migrate in an area wherein there will be enough oxygen at the same time sunlight for them to survive. After all, their goal is balance and their goal is to have an optimum growth as a species. So they tend to migrate from this particular area to an area which is safe for them and viable for their growth and development and for their reproduction. Okay, so that will be an effect of thermal pollution. You will just ask yourself, Why are there lesser fish in this particular area as compared to the other side of the river or the particular body of water? Then the answer could be because the particular area is heavily contaminated with chemicals or thermally polluted with hot water, thus letting lesser oxygen to pass into the water or to be what they call this one, to be absorbed in that particular body of water. So they need to migrate into another area. So these will be the effects of water pollutions, increase the cost of drinking water. Of course, there will come a time that our bottled water will be already considered expensive. I hope it will not come true. Threatens our health, of course, decrease the value of our property. By the way, in terms of threatening our health, it can cause digestive system problem and it can cause diarrhea or vomiting. Decrease the value of our property, destroy commercial and game fish, contaminates jellyfish, and pushes up seafood prices, poisons water flow, and other domestic structures, degrade the quality of our total environment. That will be some of the effects of water pollution. So the next problem in terms of water would be a red tide menace. It is a phenomenon wherein there is an unusual discoloration in the body of water, especially the ocean. So the ocean is blue, ocean is green, it is bluish or blue-green in nature, but there will come a time wherein there will be red tide. So literally, the tide is red. So caused by the proliferation of alga or algal bloom, also known as dinoflagellates, that contain pigments ranging from red, yellow, or brown. So take note of the word of the particular organism, dinoflagellates, that cause the red tide. So types of harmful algal bloom. So red tide, talk about red tide. This could be also harmful not only to the organisms living in a particular area, ecosystem perhaps, but also to the humans that will be eating or will be consuming that particular seafood. So do not produce toxins, but utilize the dissolved oxygen, thus killing the fish. Okay, that's the number one types of harmful algal bloom. Number two, produce potent toxins associated with different types of gastrointestinal illnesses like paralytic shellfish poisoning, diuretic shellfish poison, sorry, diuretic shellfish poisoning, amnesic shellfish poisoning, Ciguatera fish poisoning. Third type algal bloom is those algal species that are non-toxic to humans but harmful to fish and invertebrates by damaging or clogging their gills. So overall, when you talk about red tide, this is caused by algal bloom. And this algal bloom again is also producing toxin. So if we intake this particular food coming from this particular contaminated ocean, then we will also be poisoned from time to time. So I'm sure you're able to hear some news online or over the radio about food poisoning or even death due to eating contaminated shellfish, especially shellfish. The effects of red tide health impact, of course, paralytic shellfish poisoning develops from eating mollusks containing dinoflagellates that contain a neurotoxin known as saxitoxin. Economic impact, decline in the demand of fishery products, of course. If there is red tide, our fishermen will also have a hard time selling their goods since it's not good for consumption. And environmental impact, of course, the extent of water pollution. Government action against red tide. So they created the National Red Tide Task Force and RTTF to monitor toxic red tide occurrences in the Philippines to inform the public of the possible illnesses and death caused by the toxin. Okay, that's it for red tide. The next topic would be on oil spill. The type of pollution wherein oil or petroleum is released in a body of water, mostly in seas, sorry for a while, mostly in seas and ocean due to leaks from ships during the transport. Leaks or probably collision among vessels in the particular body of water. The effects could be it can kill fishes and other aquatic resources, reduces insulating ability in marine mammals like sea lions and seals, oil coats their fur, and reduces their insulation abilities, causing body temperature to change. Their film on top of water limits light penetration into the waters, affecting photosynthesis of plants and planktons. I've mentioned this earlier. When there's particular thick film of oil, will not allow sunlight to pass through and at the same time oxygen to pass through, then photosynthesis or also other living things under the water could be potentially affected. Poison coral polyps in reef 27,000 kilometers of coral reefs in the Philippines. Causes of deterioration are cyanide fishing and muruami methods. So these are some of the cases of oil spill in the Philippines. And one of the worst would be on August 11, 2006, where the MV Solar 1 sinks in the water of Guimaras Island. So carrying Petron oil about 2.4 million liter of oil to Mindanao. So also one of the diverse effect of water pollution in the Philippines would be polluting our rivers and lakes. So there are 421 rivers in the Philippines, and 50 of which is actually considered biologically dead, including the Pasig River, because they are made in the dumping sites of the different industries. So I know you're familiar with Pasig River, so Kapit Pisig para sa Ilog Pasig. So there are efforts already to conserve that particular body of water. Here in Bacolod, I think one of the biologically dead body of water or river would be the river in along Singkang area. So that is also considered as biologically dead. Because the last time we checked it using a tool, our assessment of that particular river is actually it is considered as dead already. Although there are still other fishes that could survive a particular polluted body of water, but majority of it is actually not good for um, consumption, especially for use by humans. The Sagip Ilog programs, 19 priority rivers identified by the EMB, Environmental Management Bureau, that needs with water quality criteria set by the DNR. So March 24, 1996, Mark Copper Mines pit drainage leak in one of the major rivers in Marinduque is the most fatal mining accident that happened. It destroyed crops, clogged irrigation channels, and had left the Buak River virtually dead. Cost loss of 1.8 million worth of marine and freshwater life. Residents near the Buak River has been positive for copper and zinc within their blood. So since people consume also this particular body of water, it is now being returned to them. Now, and it could actually damage their health. So as what we mentioned from our previous discussions, that we are part of the natural world and we are affected by natural principles or by natural laws. So again, whatever we do to the environment, it tends to come back at us. And so when we destroy and pollute our environment, our health will also be at risk. The Philippines has the longest coastline in the world. What about coastline? No, this is our land bodies facing the oceans or seas. So we have one of the longest, or we are considered actually the longest coastline around the world. Countries' inland waters, 421 rivers, 79 natural lakes, and more than 50,000 square meter of water reservoir where 50 rivers are considered dead. Most of them are positive for nitrates and phosphates that have caused algal bloom. And later on, talk about algal bloom, as what we mentioned, it will cause your eutrophication or the death of that particular body of water. So these are the Philippine efforts to clean the water: Industrial Eco Watch, Tap Watch, Beach Eco Watch, and Sagip Pasig. I think that's it for our discussion on water pollution. So we already know that there is actually a problem, especially also here in the Philippines and even here in our city in Bacolod or in Negros Island. So what should we do next? That will be a question that you must answer. As an environmental science student, you should know that we need to have efforts also as a student to clean the bodies of water by not throwing garbage into it, and at the same time planting more trees, I think, for us to have a cleaner water because it will actually help to recycle and the nutrients. Now, any excess nutrients from a particular water will be used by the plants, by the tree, for it to grow as a fertilizer. So it will actually retain the balance in nature. And that's it for our discussion. Thank you so much. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Thank you so much.